When Elon was a kid, he used to read science fiction novels and comics about space. That sparked his interest in space. At one point, he began thinking about turning those stories into reality by colonizing Mars. But why did he want to do that? Well, he had two main reasons. The first reason is for defense. In situations where people can't live on Earth, whether due to aliens, asteroids, or natural disaster, we would need a long-term backup. Becoming a multiplanetary species would allow humanity to escape from dangers that could threaten our survival, much like what happened to the dinosaurs. The second reason is for adventure purpose, giving opportunity to the people to explore the beauty of cosmos. To turn his idea into reality, in the year 2001, Elon Musk announced a project called Mars Oasis. This project aimed to land a greenhouse on Mars and grow plants there. To do that, he needed a powerful rocket, but the problem was the cost of making a rocket. Because making a low Earth orbit launcher itself requires millions of money. And if you need a rocket for Mars, then it was impossible to answer. Because back then, no one had ever tried to build a rocket capable of reaching Mars. So recognizing the importance of reducing the transportation cost, Musk explored the possibilities of buying decommissioned ICBMs from Russia. He believed that obtaining decommissioned Russian missiles could be a more economical approach than building a rocket from scratch. So he traveled to Moscow to acquire the neighbor ICBM. But his wish didn't happen. See, converting a decommissioned ICBM is not a new thing. But the problem was the Russian aerospace companies. They didn't take Elon's idea seriously. They just tried to ignore him. So their quote on the ICBM was high, much more expensive than he expected. During the return flight, Elon did the math and figured out that he could make a rocket for a lower cost than buying a used one. So Elon sold PayPal in 2002 and founded a company called Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, commonly known as SpaceX today. He personally interviewed each engineers and technicians and approved them as SpaceX employees, who were previously worked on companies like Lockheed Martin, NASA, and Boeing. Though his primary goal is to colonize Mars, he was a rookie in launching an actual rocket. He had the best team at that time, but for a startup company trying to build a rocket for Mars in the first step would be the worst idea ever. So he decided to build the smallest practical space launcher that could reach low Earth orbit first, instead of building something larger and more complicated. Elon's primary focus is to reduce the production cost, right? But how is he going to do that? Well, he believed in three strategies. The first one is vertical integration. This means that the company itself designs, manufactures and assembles many of the rocket components in-house. The second one is the use of commercial off-the-shelf components. Since these components are made in large quantities, they are usually cheaper than custom designed ones. The third one is modular approach. In simple terms, it's like building a Lego city with Lego blocks. Instead of making a big piece, they create smaller pieces that can be put together or replaced. By combining vertical integration, the use of commercial components and a modular approach, Elon believed that SpaceX could drastically reduce the cost associated with launching things into space. These strategies were not completely new because most of the aerospace companies had used them before, but usually one or two at a time depending upon the project. But SpaceX used all of them at once. And these strategies were not just for building rocket's body, but for the engines too. See, many companies, even NASA, were outsourcing their engines back then. But SpaceX took on a huge challenge by building its own engine in-house. SpaceX engineers designed a kerosene-fueled two-stage rocket named Falcon, inspired by the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. The first stage was powered by a Kerolux gas generator engine named Merlin, and the second stage was powered by a Kerolux pressure-fed cycle engine named Kestrel. Elon and his team showcased the Falcon 1 prototype to the public and to the government officials. The whole city's attention shifted, not towards Elon, but towards the Falcon, which was the real star of the show. While Elon explained his plans, aerospace giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin were laughing and criticizing him, because no privately funded company in the world have ever built a successful liquid propellant rocket that could reach the low Earth orbit, especially not at a lower cost than the competition. Besides the criticism, many people actually appreciated his bold move and believed in his vision. In fact, DARPA, a branch of the US government, signed a contract with them to launch their satellite into orbit. This gave them both financial and technical support. Even then, SpaceX struggled in building the Merlin engine. There were cracks and leaks in parts. The engine often failed to deliver the expected thrust and efficiency. There were software glitches, and the list went on and on right up to the launch date. But the engineers worked through every issue, fixed each problem one by one, and were eager to finally show the world the Falcon happily flying away from the world. On March 24, 2006, at Omelek Island, the Falcon 1 was finally ready to fly. The SpaceX team looked both nervous and excited, hoping their years of hard work would pay off. And at first, it did. Falcon 1 lifted off as expected, but the happiness ended as soon as it began. Because at the 25-second mark, the kerosene fuel leak caused a fire that burned through the pneumatic system lines. Once the pneumatic pressure dropped below a critical value, the engine safety system commanded the Merlin engine to shut down. In just 41 seconds, the 6.7 million Falcon swam in the ocean dead. The actual root cause of the fuel leak, which was determined later by the DARPA review board, was the failure of an aluminum binet on the fuel pump inlet due to intergranular corrosion cracking. The corrosion happened due to the incredibly corrosive saltwater environment of Umelak Island. Exactly 1 year later, the Falcon 1 was ready for its second flight, with several changes to the rocket assembly and engine. Especially the switch from aluminum to stainless steel hardware. At 1:10 p.m. the rocket lifted off and time seemed to fly with it. After 1 minute, everything looked perfect. After 2 minutes, there were still no issues. Stage separation happened, and around 4 minutes and 20 seconds, something unexpected occurred. A circular corning oscillation began due to the slashing of propellant in the liquid oxygen tank. Normally, this oscillation would have been dampened by the second stage thrust vector control system, but a bump on the second stage nozzle during separation caused an overcorrection instead, and the communication was lost. This happened when Falcon 1 was just 7 kilometers away from its destination. After 1 year, a new Falcon was ready. This time, everyone was confident that the satellite would reach orbit, because in the second flight, about 95% of the system worked perfectly, and they also knew what went wrong. So they fixed the propellant slashing issue by adding baffle plates and made adjustment to the control logic as well. Most importantly, they introduced a new Merlin 1C engine with a regenerative cooled nozzle. This was done with a lot of confidence, which turned out to be a mistake that they didn't know at that time. The new engine was more powerful but also more complex and had a hidden behavior that wasn't caught during the ground testing. Because after the Merlin engine received the cutoff command, the fuel and oxidation remained in the cooling channels, created residual thrust. This caused the first stage to destroy the second stage by damaging the Kestrel engine's plumbing. This happened because of the same staging timing from flight 2. Only 1.5 seconds between the engine shutdown and stage separation. After the rear-end collision of the flight 3, this was the darkest hours of SpaceX story. Elon was literally broke because SpaceX had 0 successful launches and was out of money. Tesla was bleeding cash and failing to deliver the Roadster. He had to take personal loan from friends just to pay his rent and keep his company's lights on. While he was fighting the laws of physics at the launch pad, his personal life was literally exploding at the same time because he was about to divorce his wife as well. Now Elon was left with only 2 choices: splitting his remaining money between SpaceX and Tesla, risking both companies from failing, or save just one. And SpaceX had exactly 1 rocket left. If that rocket failed, there would be no Flight 5 waiting. Almost everyone in the world believed that SpaceX was finished. But Elon Musk stood in front of his team and said, "For my part, I will never give up." And I mean never. The whole team stood with Elon with the same confidence and attitude he had. The engineers realized that residual thrust problem was just a timing issue. So for the Flight 4, they didn't redesign the whole rocket. They simply increased the staging delay. Instead of 1.5 seconds, they waited longer to make sure the first stage was dead before letting the second stage fly. They built a 165 kg dummy payload called RadSat because no commercial customers were willing to risk a satellite on a rocket that failed 3 times. Usually, it took a year to launch again, but the Flight 4 was ready within a few weeks after the Flight 3 failure because the company was days away from bankruptcy. But the Flight 4 almost failed before it even reached the launch pad, because while transporting the rocket to the launch pad inside a huge C-17 cargo plane, the air pressure changed too quickly. So the rocket's fuel tank started to implode like a crushed soda can. The engineers on the plane crawled inside the cargo hold with tools to manually vent the tanks while the plane was flying, and they saved the rocket skin just in time. Struggle after struggle, the all or nothing moment came, and the 4th Falcon 1 roared off the pad. This time, because of the extra second delay, the stage 1 fell away perfectly. For the first time ever, the Kestrel engine burned until the end. After 9 minutes and 31 seconds, the Falcon 1 reached orbit, and history was written. It was the first successful orbital launch of a privately funded and developed fully liquid propellant rocket. The silence inside the SpaceX headquarters was broken by a loud scream of victory. 6 years of hard work, sleepless nights, struggles, and facing mockery from big organizations had finally paid off. In 9 minutes and 31 seconds of a perfect flight proved everyone wrong. When RadSat reached orbit, many engineers in Houghton were openly crying because it wasn't just a successful launch. It was a historic moment. For the first time ever, a small private team showed the world that space was no longer only for government. The doubt of the entire world turned into respect. Even NASA, the biggest name in space, stepped in and saved this struggling startup from bankruptcy by awarding a massive $1.6 billion contract. This was the moment SpaceX stopped being a risky dream and became an important part of national security and scientific progress. Today, SpaceX is one of the most successful space companies in the world, launching rockets more frequently than the giants like ISRO and Roscosmos. But this success did not come easily. It was built through 3 consecutive failures and explosion. Elon followed a strong fail-forward mindset where every failure was treated as valuable data to learn from. By turning failure into a learning process, he didn't just build a rocket company. He built a culture of never giving up. Even the biggest disasters became the foundation for a future beyond Earth. He proved that while gravity is a law, failure is just a lesson. Once you stop being afraid of falling, reaching the stars finally becomes possible. By passing through the untearable vacuum, he showed us that the only thing stopping us from reaching the next galaxy is our own fear of dreaming. Being a hero isn't about having superpowers. It's about having jaws to never give up on your childhood dream. Remember, the world told him to grow up and face reality. Instead, he grew up and changed it.